This message is just for you. You are good enough. This is the episode for you. We know it takes time to learn a language, but how do we know when it's taking too long? So here's the problem. We know that language learning, no matter how we approach it, is going to be a long journey. And we also know that how long it takes depends on so many individual factors. The language itself, your personality, your pre-existing skills, your environment, and the time and headspace you have to give it. We know that just like with a fitness journey, you can't spend one afternoon in the gym and emerge with a six-pack. We hear over and over again, quite rightly, that results come through time and consistency. But I'm worried that the expectation that it's going to take ages might mean that we run the risk of treading water for a long time on something that isn't working for us before the alarms start to sound. And I wanted to address that today. So how do we know if we're wasting our time? And how do we know if a long time is too long? So here are 3 questions that we can ask ourselves. Number 1, is the stuff that you're learning directly feeding into your short-term and long-term goals? We all need to be really clear about what we're trying to do with this language, because that illuminates our path and it shows us what's helping and what isn't. And I know there are people out there telling you every day that something is better than nothing. But I would really say that the more limited you are for time and energy in your language learning, the more important it is to find the most efficient routes wherever possible. And so if what you're doing now is taking you on the scenic route, if you're spending 90% of your time on grammar gap fills when your main aim is to speak, or flashcards when your main aim is to speak, if you're watching hours and hours of Netflix when you've got a grammar-based exam around the corner, then it's not working. And I know I've said this before, but this isn't to say that you should stop doing those things or never do those things. It's about having that clarity to know what's moving you forwards towards your actual goal, what's bringing you enjoyment and connection to the language, which is equally valid, but separate to your primary goal. And then what's making progress towards some kind of side quest that you don't really need right now, but could bring you returns in the future. Because they are 3 different things. And the problem is when you're spending ages swimming in one and then looking at the others and wondering why progress isn't happening. Number 2, do you leave every, or at the very least most study sessions, able to do something that you couldn't do at the start of that session? There's a story that's used a lot to talk about the importance of laying the foundations in whatever venture that you want to do. And it says that if you plant a Chinese bamboo tree, you water it and add fertilizer for a whole year, nothing happens at all. No signs of growth, nothing. The same after the 2nd year, watering every single day. 3 years, 4 years, nothing. And then finally, on the 5th year, the Chinese bamboo tree grows 80 feet tall in a period of just 6 weeks. And I want to tell you right now, that is not what language learning looks like. If you're working for a week, never mind months, without seeing direct results towards your goal, something is wrong. Imagine you're learning a language from complete zero. At the end of your first lesson, depending on your language, it's perfectly reasonable to expect that you can introduce yourself, for example, or say what your name is. when you sit down over a few days or a few weeks to study a module about your city, you're not thinking, great, in 5 years, I might be able to give someone directions to the cinema. Yes, you'll need to revise that stuff over the 5 years, but you should be able to see results now and use the language that you're learning now. And question number 3, does the primary source of satisfaction, or that dopamine hit, come from the thing that you're learning, or a distractor like a streak in your app, a flashy animation, or a point system? Because what I see far too much of in the language learning world is people who dream of speaking their language. They have a 400-day streak on whatever app they happen to be using, but they don't actually speak to anyone, and they feel frustrated and they feel like it's hard. And then the world reflects back to them that language learning is frustrating and hard, and they keep doing what they're doing while congratulating themselves for their patience and their determination. Are you being duped into thinking that you're making progress? Because your satisfaction coming from surface level rewards is making you think that that is actually progress. It's a real balancing act here, because we don't want to be so fixated on patience and so accepting of lack of results that we do the same things over and over again and don't question why nothing tangible is happening. And we don't want to be congratulating ourselves on how many points we've earned when those things are actually keeping us busy on things that won't get us nearer to where we want to be. So I want to ask you today, how do you decide if something is taking too long? How do you decide if the problem is that you aren't being patient enough, or the thing is just fundamentally not working? Let me know in the comments below, and while you're there, please feel free to introduce yourself. Tell me what languages you're working on, and I would so love to hear from you. Have a fabulous day, and I will see you tomorrow.